Welcome to Quarantine Questions with Jack Heron. This is episode 5 featuring Ari Rosenfeld, who I would call the prince of Philadelphia basketball. I still think that Norm Evanson is the king, but you're next in line for sure. How you doing today, Ari?
I've been selling myself short. I usually just call myself the Jack Heron of Philadelphia basketball.
Hey, man, you're not quite there yet, but I believe in you, man. I believe in you.
one day.
So because I have the Philly guy here, I've got the Philly fit on, the 2008 authentic Philadelphia Phillies World Series gear. I'm actually born in Philadelphia. And
For you Virginia guys who don't know, man, Jack's an adopted son of the city of brotherly love.
Absolutely. Got a lot of family out there in the 610. So I always like to stay in touch with Ari so that I can stay in touch with the basketball from where I'm from. Ari, how's the quarantine treating you, man?
Oh, man, starting to get the better of me here a little bit. But, everyone's healthy. Everyone's safe. Pretty much just kind of taking it day by day, trying not to go crazy.
I'm glad to hear that, man. Glad to see you're doing well. Let's jump right into this, man. So my first question for you, Philadelphia basketball is very rich in history at pretty much every level. But where do you think it ranks among the best areas for high school basketball right now in the country?
I can't say for certain because I'm still kind of getting exposed to more areas around the country. I would say, and I hope the wrong people don't see this and I don't lose my Philly card or anything. I think we're behind DC right now. If you want to call the DMV area as a whole, I don't really think that's fair. But DC specifically, I think we're probably behind right now. I always go back and forth with my guys from New York that I think we're way ahead of them because all their guys leave and go to New England or wherever. In terms of talent, I think we're, right there with basically anywhere else in the Mid-Atlantic or in the Northeast. The culture in Philly basketball, I think is, I'm biased, obviously. But I would put the Philly basketball culture up with anywhere else, especially at the high school and grassroots levels. There's other cities with more pros or, national players of the year in college or what have you. But the culture kind of at the grassroots level, there's nothing like walking into a Philly Catholic League game. You got to ask Brendan about his experiences this year, kind of seeing some of the Philly Catholic games. Roman Camden game in Jersey this year was like that. And he's like, yeah, this is different than going into a beautiful gym at DeMatha for a DeMatha Gonzaga game. That's Brendan Strawn from St. Joe's, for those of you guys who don't know. So I think we're right there with anywhere else, but definitely a pretty unique culture.
So now, while we say that you cover the Philadelphia metropolitan area, there's a lot more to that than just Philly, right? You've got South Jersey, you've got Delaware, you've got, places around there. So kind of tell everybody what you do and where your area expertise has been in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I was half joking, but kind of serious when I said I'm kind of the Jack Heron of the Philadelphia area. For those of you guys familiar with what Jack does, what I do is very, very similar. I say just besides the media component, because I haven't really been doing that the last several years. So I'm really just focused on my scouting service right now that covers, like you said, Philly, but then also the surrounding areas. So South Jersey, Delaware, and then some of the best talent I've covered in the 4, 5, 6 years I've been doing this is out in kind of central PA, the Reddings, the Allentowns, Harrisburg, basically anything you consider southeastern PA. It's kind of my coverage range. So I'm scouting players in that area and working with schools all over the country at all different levels, basically trying to help them find good players and help players find good spots.
So as another person who runs a high school service, how do you think the high transfer rate has affected your business?
It hasn't necessarily affected my business in terms of financially or anything like that, but just in terms of my day to day, I'm definitely seeing more and more of my clients just calling me who are the transfers available, not even necessarily worrying about the high school kids. They kind of lock up the high school kids they want to get in the fall that they really prioritize, and then by this time of year, it seems if you're a high school kid, you're really facing an uphill battle against transfers and then against JUCOs also, JUCO transfers. So I do think it's made it a little bit harder this time of year where kids are hitting me up. High school kids are hey, still don't really have much going on. Is anybody who's looking, or not happy with the level I have, or what have you? And unfortunately, like, I got to tell a lot of them, yeah, like, I'll definitely see what I can do. And even if it's a kid who I think is the level that they're trying to reach, at some point it's just like, yeah, I can't really do that much because all these guys are, there's staff that are just saying we don't want a high school kid right now.
Yeah, I mean, I see the same thing. I get a lot of calls about, hey, what do you know? Do you know any transfers? Do you know any of this? Do you know any of that? And I think it's a little different for us because I don't know about you, but once kids go to high school, it's not like I forget about them, but I especially lose contact with a lot of them.
Yeah.
And even if I follow them, it's hard to see who's going to transfer and who's not. So I feel like I get a lot of calls from college coaches that are asking me if I know anybody in the transfer portal, and I seem to always answer like, I know who you know.
Exactly.
I see the same portal. I see that. Do you think that
going through verbal commits, like?
Yeah. Do you think it's somewhat unfair to the available kids? I mean, they're already especially this year, they're already missing out on April live periods. Do you think that there's anything about? Do you think there's any difference in taking a kid and coaching him for 4 years instead of just trying to take the best available kids and have him plug and play if you can?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of our best conversations will be kind of calling out some of the lack of people doing a great job in the college coaching ranks. But some of the conversations between you and I think a lot of it comes down, and there's a lot of great coaches out there, so I don't want to mix anything up. But there's also, I think, a degree of for lack of a better term, like laziness in terms of like not wanting to take a guy and develop him when you can basically, and I can't blame them because they can just go in the portal and get a kid who's already been developed by someone else, and is further along than the high school kid that they're gonna put a bunch of time into developing. So it's hard to blame coaches for that because like these kids are out. There's 1,000 kids in the portal right now who have the track record of playing college basketball. But yeah, I mean, I do wish like there would be more of a willingness to say, especially at like the low and mid-major levels where every player you're going to get is flawed in some way, or else you're not getting them. They'd be at Kentucky if they weren't a flawed player in some way. So kind of like a lack of willingness to kind of like work around the flaws and put some time in the development side. I definitely think that's affecting part of it.
So what do you think about the possibility of getting rid of the 1 year transfer rule? So, they said that they're voting on it this week. They're talking about, you get one transfer and you don't have to sit out for a year. How do you think that will affect what's already gotten into a very high number, a transfer rate that we never thought we'd get to?
Yeah. I mean, you'll 100% see a lot more kids in there. I could also see it where like you see kids in there and you see a higher rate of kids putting their name in, seeing what they can get, and then maybe going back to their original school. But I think you'll 100% see a lot more kids in the portal if they pass that. There's a lot of people that freak out about like it's not fair, it's not what like that stuff kind of falls on deaf ears for me. But like these guys will adapt and they'll figure it out. Like there's been rule changes, in college basketball as long as there's been college basketball, and people adapt. And we're sitting here with a bunch of available guys for who are good players. Like there's always going to be good players. For every level, there's not going to be a shortage of that. So like, I think it would be a good thing. Let the kids, have a little bit more freedom, have a little bit more power to kind of make their own decisions. The one thing I don't like would be if they were to pass it right in the middle of this summer and have it go in effect immediately, because I just don't think that's fair to the schools who've been recruiting. Like, some of them are recruiting assuming their transfers have to sit out, and some are recruiting banking on their transfers getting to play right away, and like half of them get to turn out right and half of them turn out wrong because of a vote. I feel like that's not really fair. Like if it should be passed, I think it should be for next year. Basically like the 2021 recruiting class.
Yeah, I mean, I was on, Jamie Shaw. I was on his podcast not too long ago, and we talked about it. And I was saying I really think that this is going to increase the number of kids who go to the post-grad level. I think it's going to increase the number of kids who end up having to go JUCO, whether or not they qualify for the NCAA clearinghouse out of high school. I feel like a lot of kids that aren't going to get the opportunity are going to have to go JUCO, and then we'll see more people recruiting JUCO. I think that one thing that we don't take into account with this is, say I am a solid 2020 commit and I end up going to a solid mid-major level school that I look like I'm going to play a little bit my freshman year, and then my sophomore, junior, senior year, I'll have a chance to start. And then they end up taking a transfer who can come in immediately that plays my position and starts over me. Now I have to make the decision to whether or not
do I stay or do I maybe go down or
and I think that's going to be another thing that happens. I also think we're going to get more and more kids who maybe just accept the fact that, hey, I can go to a low major school, and if I'm that good, I can do what I do and then transfer up.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm telling kids, especially like, I think you were going to want to talk about some of like the COVID stuff. That's what I'm telling kids with everything going on right now. Like the way the culture is with transfers, like if you have a scholarship on the table right now and you're an unsigned senior, like a scholarship is D1, D2, a full prep scholarship, a full JUCO scholarship. Like you got to take that or think really, really hard about taking that, because the nature of this is like, you can go D2, and I don't think this was necessarily the case 5-10 years ago. But like you can go D2 and kill if that's, if you really think you're a higher level, go to that level and kill, and you can move up. Like there's a kid, Robbie Heath from Abington, played with Eric Dixon and played with Lucas Monroe in high school on a really good team. Always thought he was, probably a little bit better than the market seemed to think that he was. Went to prep, ended up going D2 to Westchester, who's a really good D2 up here. Dropped 26 a game at a freshman. He just signed with Pepperdine the other day and had, a bunch of low mid-majors from all over the country hitting him up. So it's like just like the nature of that, like, and with how much uncertainty there is with all this stuff, like, I'm telling kids, take stuff now. And like the culture's never been more amenable to taking kids from a lower level if they have, a good resume to their name.
Just to let everybody know that I'm not lying, I actually had a couple cousins who went to Westchester. So I know exactly what you're talking about. They lived in Paoli, so about 30 minutes away.
Shout out to the Rams.
Absolutely, man. So something new that you've been doing this year, you have been doing a little bit of scouting for some NBA teams. Am I correct?
Yep, definitely.
So tell me how you got involved in
that. So honestly, I sort of fell into it. I mean, and you know me, like, the NBA has always been my goal eventually. That's the level I want to be working at. But so about at this point, probably like a year and a half ago, I was approached by this guy, Alon Vinokurov, who a lot of people don't know name-wise, but had a pretty big following in the NBA and like in the draft community, running his own kind of basically like a scouting service or consulting service, catering NBA teams for the draft. And he was really just scouting college players as part of that. And, had a staff of like maybe 8 to 10 guys per year, helping him with that. And he would go to some high school stuff here and there just as kind of like, to get a background or a feel for the guys who are going to be like, the next crop of like one and dones. But there was no formal like high school side of his business. And he approached me like, around like Thanksgiving of I guess 2018 and was like, like I would love to kind of bring somebody like you on to start, basically would be the high school side of EV Hoops, which was his company. Looking towards kind of like the rule change at that time, it was expected that the one and done would be probably taken away for 2022. And just in general, like he saw that NBA teams are putting more and more stock into high school and really having a pulse at that level. So he wanted to bring me on and start that. And I was still, finishing out school at the time, so I wasn't in the area. But we spent, about the next like year or so, 6-9 months, like really building that up, put out like a couple sample reports to teams and all that. Long story short, Alon ended up getting hired by the Lakers right before the start of the season. So obviously like that was awesome for him. It ended up working out great for me because basically like everybody he'd been in contact with trying to sell this service, he wound up passing along to me and putting in touch with me with a really good recommendation. And basically a few of them agreed to give me a chance for this year. As basically doing like a national scouting service, really just looking at like the elite level high school kids, and projecting them only towards the NBA. So kind of helping them cut through some of, there's kids who are top 5 recruits every year who are going to be great college players, but don't fit what the NBA is looking for, kind of like helping them cut through some of that. And being kind of like their eyes and ears, because they're so limited as to, how much time they can spend in a high school gym or what events they can go to.
So tell me, what are some similarities? What are some differences in like the reports that you have with college coaches and the reports that you have with NBA teams?
Yeah. I'd say like the biggest differences would be like, I feel like a lot of times I put a lot of work into like the evaluations for my college service, Delaware Valley Hoops Report, but I feel like a lot of the clientele, it kind of winds up falling on deaf ears. Like they're just a lot more interested in, what's this kid's phone number, who's around him, who do I need to talk to recruit him, who else is recruiting him, stuff like that. There's some exceptions, and there's some people that definitely value my evals more than others. But in the NBA side, like they're a lot more interested in just like the hard evaluation. And that's right up my alley. Like that's stuff that I'm much more into than the, who's around him, who's recruiting him, what have you. But I mean, like there is a similarity in that like they are also very interested in the intel, less about like, oh, where's this kid going to college, or like, who's recruiting him, but more just like, is he a hard worker? Is he coachable? Do his teammates like him? Do his coaches like him? Does he have bad people around him? Stuff like that. Like that's definitely a similarity that NBA teams are really focused on. And just like philosophically, it also takes, it forces you to be a little bit more critical. Looking at high school guys towards the NBA, I mean, you're skipping a whole level in between of college where most of these guys are going to wind up, topping out at, just statistically. So it really forces you to be like really, really hypercritical of like, basically like this guy's not an NBA player until he like really, really shows me something that proves he's an NBA player.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like one of the things that me and you have in common through our talks and stuff with prospects is that we're both a little bit tough in our evaluations. Mm-hmm. We both are ones that seem to be a little conservative with it.
Yeah, I think the best way to put it is like we're both looking at where can this kid be successful, not like what's the highest level he can play at.
Absolutely. So when you talk with coaches about it, because this is something that I've had to deal with, do you have a lot of them who claim that they like that evaluations are the most important, but don't seem in the end to really care about that? Like I have so many of them that are like, yeah, your evaluations are spot on, but I need to know which uncle do I need to talk to talk, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely some of that. I do think like there are like, but there are a lot of the people who are just like, yeah, like I know Ari's the guy to call, like who will, to just have a basketball conversation with. Like there's other people in Philly you can call to like help you get a kid, or like help, or who are going to call you to sell you on a kid because he's from here. I think I kind of have tried to establish a niche of like, I'm the one who's just going to shoot it to you straight. And especially like for, the coaches are my clients. Like as much as I'm around these kids and want to see these kids be successful, I also owe it to these coaches not to be selling them like a bag of goods. Because then that's always going to come back on me if the kid's not good enough. And then also it's not fair to the next kid the following year who I want to recommend to that school. But the last year I gave them a kid who wasn't good enough, and now they're not going to take me seriously, when I tell them about this kid who I really think, can play at that level. So I think for the most part, like, my clients know that, and there's some of my clients who just get my reports and I'm sure read them. And that's a value. There's the other ones who I'm in touch with more. It's so there's a give and take. Like some of it's just like, hey, I need a phone number, da 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 da. But like I think a lot of people have realized like I'm the one you call just to kind of like get a good evaluation on this kid and like really shoot me straight and not try to upsell a kid or downsell a kid.
So yeah, I think I always say that I feel like that is our niche as scouts. I'm not going to help you get a kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Jack Heron is not going to help you get a kid out of Virginia. That's what the AAU programs are for. That's what the high school coaches are for. But at times, I feel like, and I'm sure in your area it's the same, high school coaches will oversell their kids. AAU
and that's their job to some degree. But yeah,
so we're the unbiased middleman that gives you what you need to know about this kid, but you got to still figure out who to contact and what exactly you need to do to land a kid.
Yeah.
So let's move on. I want to get to these rapid fire questions with you here. Got 5 questions for you. Pretty simple.
Wow.
I pretty much have asked everybody this. It's very, very short answers if you want. What is the best place to get a Philly cheesesteak? On the spot right now, Ari.
Alessandro's, hands down.
Ooh, I like it.
Best. Anybody who's ever been to an AAU event at Philly U or Jefferson U knows all about D'Alessandro. or if they don't, they've been doing this horribly wrong.
Well, take note, college coaches. If you're in Philly, De Los Angeles is the spot. What's your favorite basketball movie?
Um, that's a tough one. Probably what I gotta. It's basic, but I could probably gotta go. White Man Can't Jump.
Oh, I like it.
I'd say like other contenders would be like Coach Carter. Glory Road's a classic. Blue Chips is a classic. Especially for what we do. But I probably gotta go. White Man Can't Jump.
I mean, he was a goofy white. You know what I mean? Who's your basketball goat?
That's a tough one, man. My heart wants to say Kobe because Kobe's he was my first favorite player and my only favorite player for the first 16, 17 years of my life until he retired. It's probably like emotionally like a lot of the reason why I'm doing what I do is just inspired by Kobe. The actual like scout in me has got to say at least like my GOAT as a 23-year-old has to be LeBron. And that's no like I can't definitively say like that means LeBron's better than Jordan because I never watched Jordan. And as a scout, like that's important to me. Like I'm not gonna just like throw an opinion out there that I don't really believe in or that I don't have an opinion back up. So LeBron's my GOAT. He's the GOAT that I've seen with my own eyes. If you want to say Jordan's better, I can't really argue against that. It's hard to I think argue that anyone else is over LeBron just off his accomplishments. But so LeBron or Jordan, I mean, maybe by the end of The Last Dance, I'll have come around, and be able to say Jordan. But I gotta say LeBron just off what I've seen.
What's your favorite thing to do outside of basketball?
Play with my dog. Especially right now during the quarantine, that's like the only thing keeping me sane, man.
I bet you your dog is the only one that's excited about quarantine.
Oh, he loves it. He loves it. He's getting like multiple walks a day, and everyone's home and obsessed with him. So
yeah, mine too. What's your best basketball memory?
That's a tough one. One of them, can I give you like a couple off the top of my head? I don't have like a go-to answer for this. I don't know the last time I've ever been asked this. Couple of definitely watching Kobe, the Lakers win Game 7 against the Celtics. At the time, like I was like a die-hard Lakers fan at this point in my life.
Greater.
Yeah, so I'll never forget that. And that was amazing. Going to the Final Four with my dad, the first time Villanova was in it. My dad, is a born 60-some-odd-year-old Philadelphian who's been a Villanova fan his whole life. So again, experience that with him was pretty cool. And then also just kind of in tune with that. Me and my dad go to the Big East tournament every year for the semifinals. And just kind of those memories just overall. We've gone for like 7 years. So just kind of lump that together into one. It's just awesome. Going to the Garden, there's nothing like it.
Just for the record, both my parents are Villanova graduates as well, and my grandfather used to be a professor at Villanova. So I understand the Wildcat love.
Jack's really playing his Philly card up here.
Hey, I just want to be accepted. I just want to be accepted. So I got one last question. It's a little bit of a doozy, and I'm putting you right on the spot with this.
Go ahead.
In your time that you've been scouting, who do you feel are the best players that you've seen come out of the Philadelphia area? I'm not going to put you on the spot for the best, although I think I know who you'd say.
I'm curious. Who do you think I'd say?
I believe you'd say Cam Reddish.
So if we're talking, are we talking just Philly, or can we expand it? Like, can we call it the whole area that I cover?
We can go outside of it.
Okay, because I'd actually say Lonnie Walker.
Very
if
true.
you ask me just who the best is. Cam is obviously up there. Just like for reference for people, like I've been doing this since about like 2014. So call it the last like 6-7 years. Maybe a couple years before that where I was really following it, pretty closely. So definitely Lonnie, Cam, like obviously those guys have made it to the NBA or, one and done blue chip guys. DeAndre Hunter wasn't really that level guy when he was in high school, but he's obviously panned out into that. So I've got to give him some credit. Mohamed Bamba was at West Town the whole time that, that I've been doing this. Was obviously one and done. And then for like the Philly guys, two of the ones where I really think like, I think you ask anybody who watched these guys play Philly high school basketball, they'll tell you they were NBA talents, is Rasheed Jordan and Brandon Austin. So that was kind of like right when they were 2013 grads, and that was before I was working officially in anything with basketball, but I was actually in high school myself and just following the stuff really closely. And those two were just like unlike anything I'd seen up close. And like honestly, like talent wise, I'll put them with anybody that I just named who's in the NBA at this point. Rashid went to St. John's and ended up kind of having some academic troubles and some legal troubles, and he's now trying to kind of get his career back off the ground. And Brandon had he ended up actually going to Providence and going to Oregon, and had like a couple sexual assault allegations actually. Never got charged with anything. But never wound up playing college basketball, and he's playing overseas right now. But you put any of those guys in the gym with the guys I just named, or a lot of NBA pros, and they're right there talent wise.
Okay, and one follow up for it: who are for our college coaches and fans out there? Who are the guys right now that they should get to know that are going to be big time college players moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, so we got a lot of talent in the area right now. I think it was a little bit of a down 2020 class. I know like a lot of my clients heard that from me a lot. And the 2021 class, which I think is down nationally, is actually pretty strong around here. So that's been a nice kind of change of pace. The top guys like in the city right now would be Russell Diggins from Archbishop Wood, Nassim Poplar, Wooga from Math, Civics, and Sciences. Both of those guys are two really hot names right now. And then Jalen Worley at Westtown just got like Memphis and NC State yesterday. Those are all rising seniors. Stevie Mitchell also I put right in that group from out near Reading. Nana Njoku just committed to Villanova. I mean, I could keep going for days. That's kind of like the top group in 2021. I would say, and Jordan Longino, who's been picking up a bunch of offers the last several weeks from Germantown Academy, shooting guard. And then in 2022 is honestly the class I'm most excited about in a really long time. Like I tell people, the time I've been doing this, I've had 2 high major plus kids in my reports, and that was Cam Reddish and Lou King, because Lou was playing with Team Final. If I were to put grades on kids, and I don't put grades on sophomores until usually like around this coming summer is when I'll start putting grades onto them in my reports. I'd probably have 5 high major plus kids, which is double and then some more than I've had the last 5 classes or 4 classes combined. So that's Jalen Duran, who's just going down to Montverde. He just announced that last week. He's, arguably the top big man prospect in the country, regardless of class. And then you've got a lot of, really good group of guards. Chance Westry and Justice Williams are both highly regarded, top 30, top 40 kids. A bunch of high major offers. Derek Lively's another 7-footer with a chance to be a pro from Westtown. And then actually the big sleeper in that class, who would have been blowing up, like as we speak right now, if the live periods are off the ground as normal, is Quadir Copeland. There's a kid out of Gettysburg, so like way out in the sticks, but originally actually a Philly kid. He's right now could be a 21, could be a 22. By age, he should be a 22. And I think he's just as talented as any of those guys. I think people are going to start to find that out whenever we can get back on the court.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you stopping by and talking basketball. I'm sure I'll be calling you here in a couple of days anyways, just to talk. But how can everybody reach you or follow your stuff?
I'm pretty easy. I'm pretty much only on Twitter, A Rosenfeld Hoops. That's FELD in Rosenfeld. The funny story is my mom's maiden name is Rosenfield. And so everybody always thinks that my name, and just assuming like everyone always thinks my name is Rosenfield. So I always have to correct them that there's no I. So it's FELD in Rosenfeld, A Rosenfeld Hoops on Twitter. That's pretty much the only thing I use. My email's in my bio, and like my DMs are open. So if people want to, get in touch over the phone, hit me up there, and then, I'm always happy to give my number out.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking your time, man. As always, it's been a lot of fun talking with you, man. And, I'm always open too if you need anything from me.
Of course, man. Appreciate you, Jack.
All right, buddy.